Senator Lankford, thank you.
Senator Tillis, thank you. Mr. President, thank you for acknowledging our time to be able to be here and be in this conversation. This is a serious conversation because this is a NATO ally. Dr. Andrew Brunson has been in Turkey now 24 years. For 23 of these years, he served as a pastor and a humanitarian worker. He took care of providing food and clothing, pastoral ministry to anyone who would come, just like anyone does. Now, that's not an issue in Turkey for decades, because Turkey has been very open to all faiths, all religions, and have prided themselves on being a nation that recognizes all faiths and all backgrounds and all religions and ethnicity. At least that was the old Turkey. And literally under Dr. Brunson's feet, Turkey shifted from where they were to we don't recognize them anymore as a NATO ally. In October of 2016, Dr. Brunson was called by the police department there, assuming it was an immigration issue. He and his wife went because they had gone multiple times to the police department to be able to renew their visa and to be able to keep everything up to date. They had a great relationship with the local police department, with local individuals, with all the authorities in the areas because they had been there for 2 decades and had developed great friendships. So they went to check in, but this time instead of just checking in again for an immigration issue, they took them into custody without any charges and held them for a year with no charges, and then eventually presented these trumped up charges that they've laid out there that are absolutely absurd. How a Christian minister is somehow cooperating with a Muslim in a coup in Turkey is absurd on its face. But all of the crazy accusations from secret witnesses that would appear by video with their faces blurred out, making some accusation that they had seen or they had heard, allowing no one to actually ask them questions. And just as absurd on that is not allowing Dr. Brunson to be able to bring any witnesses in his defense. There have now been 2 hearings that have been just this style. Dr. Brunson not allowed to be able to bring anyone to be able to speak on his behalf. All of these trumped up witnesses that come with blurred out faces as a secret testimony that they can come present to be able to come back and present some sort of thing that they would consider evidence that we would never allow in any court, and quite frankly, no one would take seriously in any accusations. In 2016, after Dr. Brunson had just been in jail for a few weeks, I went to Turkey and visited with the Minister there of Justice. The Minister of Justice at that time said, we have some information, we're going to work this out, we're going to allow the process to be able to go through the court system, but we will rapidly go through this process. Now, in a year and a half later, we're finding out there never was any evidence, there never is any issue, and we're still dealing with an American being held hostage by a NATO ally. I thought I would never say this sentence, but I would like to see Turkey follow the example of North Korea and release American hostages that they're holding. Now, when Turkey, a NATO ally, is behind North Korea and how they're handling humanitarian issues, Turkey has moved to a very bad spot. And it's not a place that they need to stay. Turkey's been a friend and an ally. We've worked together against terrorism. We've worked together in economics. But I joined Senator Tillis in the statement that he just made. I would discourage anyone that I speak to and have to do any business in Turkey, to travel to Turkey at this point, because if you're doing business in Turkey, you cannot guarantee the safety of your employees any longer. If you're traveling to Turkey, you cannot be guaranteed safety anymore. Because of the emergency powers that are currently being used in their legal system, they can sweep up anyone for any accusation, hold them for any length of time. And that is not just theory, that is being proven by a pastor being held for a year and a half in Turkey with false charges. I would highly recommend no one does business in Turkey at this moment, just for the safety of your employees and the people that you would work with. Now, Turkey's not just done this. They've also turned towards Russia, pursuing Russia for their air defense systems. As a NATO ally, that is unheard of, to be able to say that they're going to have NATO equipment, but then they're also going to go to Russia for part of their equipment. That shows the turning of President Erdogan and the turning of the leadership of the country. Congress is not going to just sit back on this, and should not. Senator Shaheen and I have already put language out for the Foreign Ops Bill in appropriations that would specifically identify those individuals, the judges in the court, the officials that are holding Pastor Brunson, the officials in the city jail, and in their national government that are specifically holding those individuals, to apply sanctions directly to the individuals that are holding an American pastor hostage. Senator Shaheen and Senator Tillis and I have already put forward a piece of legislation blocking Turkey from maintaining or purchasing the F-35. They're a NATO ally and they should have access to that, but they're not acting like a NATO ally and we don't know where they're going, and it would be a mistake for the United States to give our best technology to somewhere that we don't know where it's going to go and how it's going to be used in the future. Just this week, the House released their National Defense Authorization Act. In the base text of the NDAA coming from the House, they have a provision that would block all defense sales to Turkey until we get more information about what's happening in the future, what direction Turkey's going. That is a reasonable precaution to take in a nation that is rapidly shifting away from democracy and towards a free court, free speech, and freedom of religion. They're losing humanitarian values there. And we should address that and respond to that, and we are. It's not just what we might do, it's what we are doing currently to try to respond to this issue. The State Department continues to be able to apply diplomatic pressure, but we've moved past the time when diplomatic pressure needs to be applied. It's time to apply economic pressure and pressure on how our partnership's going to work long term. We want our ally back, the Turkey that we used to know, that we cooperated with and maintained a long-term friendship with. We'd love to be able to maintain that long-term friendship with an ally that has historically stood with us and we have stood with them. But we cannot recognize who Turkey is anymore. A good first step for them would be to follow the lead of North Korea and release our hostages out of their jails. With that, I'd yield back to my senator and friend,
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Tillis.
President.